time is valuable. That's why Lowe's Blueprint Takeoffs turn blueprints into quotes faster. Bring us your plans, and we'll generate itemized material lists to make quoting easier so you can get back to building. Plus, at the Lowe's Pro Desk, you get access to thousands of building materials not sold in store. And when your order's ready, we'll deliver everything to the job site. Improving is easy at Lowe's.
Let me tell you something that happened to me yesterday in the hospital. So I was at the hospital waiting to see the doctor, and I was sitting on a chair that was attached to multiple chairs. It was like a row of chairs, and people who sat down on those chairs rather, were people who were waiting to see the doctor. Now, there was this woman who sat down next to me, and for some reason, this woman did not just understand the importance of respecting a person's personal space. Because this woman was moving her entire body in a way that was just trying to consume space of people around her. More specifically, me. This woman she would adjust her hand near me. She would move her body near me. She would shift and move and get up and sit down. And she wasn't doing this in a way of, oh, there's no space, let me just try to adjust. It was not in that way. It was not in oh, there's no space, let me just try to adjust myself and find a comfortable position I could sit in. No, it was as if this woman was oblivious to the fact that it was a place that she could sit down comfortably and not disturb another person. She was also oblivious to the fact that other people were there and you're just supposed to sit down and mind your own business in terms of physical space. This lady was just moving. And there was this child that she was playing with. And so she would play with the child and she would move her hand and it would bump into me, not very aggressively, but it was inconveniencing. It was uncomfortable, to just have somebody who you don't know just sit beside you and be rubbing bodies on you. She would shift her bag beside me and try to occupy more space to where I'm sitting. And it was just very uncomfortable. Like the experience was just so uncomfortable. But guess what I did while she was dancing amapiano with her entire body? I just put my feet on the ground, not aggressively, but I kind of stamped my feet on the ground. Once again, not aggressively, but I put it on the ground and I widened my body and even occupied more space than she was trying to occupy. And that entire thing was surprising to me because the Martins of a few years back, he would have never done such a thing. He would have just been adjusting until he then falls off the seat and then it would then be an actual emergency that they would then rush him to see the doctor. But I stood my ground and I kept my body very well until I then had to go see the doctor. And so leaving the hospital yesterday, I felt happy. In my mind, I started to realize that, hold on. I'm actually starting to defend myself. I'm actually starting to stand up for myself. Now, to some people, this might sound very, very funny. This might sound it does not make any sense to them whatsoever. But to me, it was a big deal to actually occupy space when it seemed like I could have just shrunk physically. And so I kind of smiled inwardly and I thought to myself, I've slowly stopped becoming a people pleaser. Today I'm going to be talking about people pleasing and how I got over it. But before we dive right into the episode, I wanted to give you a little bit of an update on what's been going on in my life so far, specifically on the feeling of sadness. If you could remember a couple of episodes ago, for people who are long-time listeners of the podcast, I dropped an episode a couple of months ago and it was about me feeling sad. I think it's titled "Listen to This If You Feel Sad and Don't Know Why." But in that episode, I talked about how lately I've been feeling sad. And I was wondering whether sadness was supposed to last that long and whether it wasn't depression. We went down onto this analytic episode on the difference between sadness and depression and whether I could be feeling sadness or depression. And then the conclusion was kind of that I was in the middle in a way. And I wanted to give an update on that. The update is going to be kind of brief because I absolutely do not like it when someone wants to give me an update on something and they're just stalling and talking for long. So we'll just get right into it. Recently, I've been hanging around people who make me feel happy. And I feel like this sounds somehow in a way because I talk about it so much on the podcast. I talk about how hanging out with people that bring you so much joy, that make you feel happy, that make you feel amazing with yourself, and make you feel amazing and all of that. It's really wonderful, and you should keep on doing it. But I would say that at that point when I was saying that, and at that point when I was talking with you on the episode, I kind of was in an isolated phase. I wasn't really talking with much people, and I wasn't really hanging around much people. I think most of my close, good friends were online. They were at a faraway distance, and so a good number of our conversations were mostly online. But recently, I've been hanging around people who, after hanging around them, I go home and I feel happy. I feel inspired. I feel freaking motivated after hanging around these people. It's just been wonderful. And in a way, that has started making me feel a little less sad. Now, I don't know if the entire reason for feeling sad would have been that I wasn't hanging around people like that. Maybe, who knows? I haven't really decided yet. But I would say that hanging around those kind of people has made me feel better in a way. It has made me feel just good, less sad and less depressed, if we may, or the combination of both of them, less sandwich sad, if that's a word. But it has made me feel better about myself. It has made me, my mood, my energy, and all of that to be significantly better. It's just a wonderful thing. It's just a wonderful thing that's going on for me right now. And so I decided to just let you know. That being said, let's dive right into the episode. So, whatever it is you're doing, you're sweeping, you're cooking, you're taking a walk, you're sitting down, you're editing a video, you're lying down, you're jogging, you're taking a shit, like I say I usually often do while listening to podcasts, whatever it is you're doing, let's just dive right into this wonderful conversation together. So, first of all, who is a people pleaser? And how do you know that you are a people pleaser? I did a research on this. I ensured that I got at least a comprehensive definition that would encapsulate everything that a people pleaser is, so that it would give you this understanding of who a people pleaser is. And so from the note I have here, it says, a people pleaser is someone who puts other people's needs, comforts, and approval ahead of their own, often to avoid conflict, rejection, or disappointment. On the outside, they look kind, helpful, and easygoing. They're always like, there's nothing bothering them. They're chill. They can do what you want to give them 200 favors. Fine, 500, double it. Just be giving them. They don't really care. They are easygoing, and in your mind, you're like, wow, this person is really, really helpful. This person is really, really nice and kind. But inside, they're actually usually exhausted. They are anxious or just quietly resentful. It's not about being nice. It's about needing approval to feel okay. A couple of episodes ago, I talked about people pleasing with my guest, Ola. And one of the things that I think struck out to me the most in that episode was the differentiation we had between being kind and being a people pleaser. Because I feel like most times people tend to misunderstand what being a people pleaser is, or when they say stop being a people pleaser, some people get that twisted. When they say don't be a people pleaser, it does not mean you should go out there and be rude, be mean, or be nasty to people. It does not mean any of that. But it does not also mean that being a people pleaser means that you are kind and that's a bad thing for being kind. No, there is actually a difference between being kind and being a people pleaser. When you're kind, we say kindness is niceness with boundaries. So when you're a kind person, you are nice, you have wonderful connections with people, you're a good person at your core, you help people, but that is not done to the detriment of your own goals and tasks that you've set out to do for your own self. And then when it comes to people pleasing, it's kindness without boundaries. So yes, you're kind, you're wonderful to be around, yes, you're helping people, but all of that then comes at the cost of the detriment of your own achievements, your own goals. So you would shift that all aside to just ensure that you help other people, not because of the fact that you love doing it, but because you don't want people to feel disappointed with you. You want the approval of other people. You want other people to be in good terms with you. You don't want any conflict. You don't want any tension with anybody. I've mentioned multiple times on the podcast that I had people-pleasing tendencies in a very, very large quantity, if we can quantify it like that. And I would say that with each passing day, I try my best. It's not gone completely, but it has significantly reduced compared to how high it used to be. Now, what are some traits or habits that people pleasers have? Once again, I did a research on this and I had to get a list of traits and habits that people pleasers have, or traits or habits that somebody might listen to and be like, this is actually something that I have or I do significantly that I think might make me be considered as someone who is a people pleaser. So here it goes. Being more worried about other people's opinions than your own opinions. And I think this is one of the most prominent sign of being a people pleaser. You worry so much about what every other person thinks more than yourself. And there is this person who I listen to, Tam Core. She says that why would you ever worry about the opinions of other people who've known you for a minute, for 2 years, for 3 years, for a couple of hours, for a couple of years, and you would place their opinions on a higher pedestal, remove your own opinions and put it down. You, that you've known yourself throughout your entire life, you've known every single experience that you've encountered, and they are very personal to yourself. There is no human being on this single planet who understands you better than yourself. And so putting every other person's opinion and their own thoughts and their own everything on top of your own is a big disservice to yourself. This is not verbatim, I'm just saying it as I remember, but that's one quote that she says that has stuck with me. The next one says, difficulty establishing boundaries. You find it very difficult to establish boundaries with people when it comes to your own properties, to your own words that you don't like them to use on you, or things that they do that you do not like. There is difficulty establishing the boundaries. There is also difficulty enforcing the boundaries, even if established. So even after you've said, okay, let me establish these boundaries, I think I don't actually like this. And then you establish such boundaries with those people, you can't even enforce those boundaries. Enforcing in the sense that you can't keep in mind that you can't call them out whenever they cross the line of the boundaries that you've set. You can't say, hey, I don't like this. I don't like something that you did. I don't like this thing you did. It made me feel this particular way, and I would actually appreciate if you stopped it. No. After establishing the boundaries, you can't really enforce it. Maybe you feel a bit shy, you feel a bit weird about it. You don't want to cause conflict for something that is primarily detrimental to you. There's an unwillingness to stand up for yourself, tendency to go along with others' point of view. You barely even want to say what you think or how you feel about a particular subject simply because of the fact that, oh, the other person's opinion or idea might sound cooler. There is a need for validation from others, often becoming a soundboard or therapist for others. That's something that I've struggled with personally, and I will talk more about it. People will talk to you, but they are reluctant to listen to you, in the sense that you'll be having a conversation with somebody, but they don't listen to you really. They are hearing you. It's more about them and what they want and what they are saying and how they feel, and you're kind of like absorbing it. But then when you say your own stuff, they don't really listen. They just turn their face the other way. They don't really pay attention. And I think I talked about it once on another episode. I think it's called, Yeah, You Should Cut Them Off, whereby you're talking to somebody, and when they're talking, you're giving them your full attention. You're there for them. You're pouring out your resources, your mental energy. You're thinking about everything they're saying. You're putting it into consideration. But when it's your turn to talk, they're kind of sort of busy all of a sudden. Their notifications seem very loud. They're really into the phone. Oh, the ceiling, the curtain looks very interesting. If they're this kind of people, you probably are hanging around the wrong kind of crowd, I would say. But if that is a continuous activity, then you're sort of people pleasing, in the sense that you're around the sort of people knowing very well that they're detrimental for yourself. There is a tendency to take blame for activities or things that you did not even participate in simply because of the fact that you don't want tension. There is tendency to feel guilty. This would come up most especially when you start enforcing your boundaries, when you start establishing your boundaries, when you start bringing up or saying how you feel. There is also you making excuses for other people's bad behaviors. And I think this also links into the one that says there's a tendency to feel guilty and also having issues enforcing your boundaries. Because when you can't even enforce your boundaries, you're feeling guilty for enforcing the boundaries. Like, but this is a close friend, but they did something really bad to me. And I feel kind of bad enforcing my boundaries. I feel a bit uncomfortable doing that. And then you start making excuses for them. This was something that I also struggled with personally, whereby somebody does me something bad, or somebody's doing something that in a way, it's the bells in my head, they are going off. They're like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And I'm telling myself, no, they are my friend. They have my best interest at heart. They probably know this is bad. They're not going to do it again. It's not, I'm overthinking this. You start making excuses just so that you can avoid confrontation that would lead to you having your peace of mind and having you say your opinion out. And then there is the last one, which says walking on eggshells around certain people that you know you absolutely cannot tolerate, certain people that okay, let's even remove the factor of tolerating, but people who you are supposed to stand up for yourself towards. You are supposed to express yourself very well around those people because of the fact that you do not want to be out of favor with those people. You don't want them to dislike you for who you are at your core, or your humor, or how you behave or your mannerisms or your beliefs, you tone it down a bit. You are always careful so as to not upset them, not for valid reasons, because I do understand that there are scenarios and situations whereby being yourself might not be favorable and you have to tone it down to get what it is you want. But in situations whereby you have nothing to lose and you just have this fear of falling out of favor with this person, that definitely can be classified as people pleasing. And then it further concludes by saying, keep in mind that not every person will do everything on this list. It's just a sample of behaviors that sometimes do become people pleasing. So, in essence, it's saying that all the things that I just listed here, a person does not have to exhibit all of them before they are considered a people pleaser. The only thing is that they can have maybe a couple of behaviors here and there, one or two or three, or a handful of behaviors that are on this list that are repeated consistently, that they cannot say, this thing actually is a sign of people pleasing. I might actually be a people pleaser if they do these activities with regularity. And then in the list, I talked about how I struggled with being a sounding board or some sort of therapist for people. And I did not think that was wrong at first because it didn't seem wrong at first. But I'll briefly just tell you how that all happened. So initially, I used to be this guy who has this deep wisdom, if I do say so myself, but has this well of understanding and compassionate energy, and he's just so emotionally available and understanding and intelligent. And so people who were around me, friends and acquaintances alike, would always just come to me with their problems or their thoughts or their concerns or their worries, and I would immediately drop whatever it is I'm doing and I would go to their aid and I would give them advice and advise them and comfort them and comfort them. And most especially, it was usually folks who had like very low self-esteem in themselves and would not even come for advice that they would apply into their lives. They just wanted to just talk and talk. And I could not even know that. I would always feel, oh, they're coming to me for advice. Oh my God, I don't want to let them down. I don't want them to feel disappointed. I don't want them to feel like they can't count on me. Oh my God, I'm doing something that is so important to me. Let me drop it and go and meet these people. Let me help them out. Let me carry them up. Let me give them a shoulder to cry on when my own shoulder is actually bent. And I'm like, let me help these people. Let me. And so I did that a lot until I started to realize how draining that entire thing felt. But I will still talk more about it. But all of this is just to say that I did have personal experiences in more than one of these lists that I've mentioned that eventually came to my mind that, hold on, I'm actually a people pleaser. If you look at this thing very well, I'm actually exhibiting a lot of attributes that people pleasers have. Another personal experience that I've had when it comes to people pleasing is shrinking myself so that I will not inconvenience people. I think that is similar to the last one, which says walking on eggshells around certain people. One thing I always did whenever I felt like somebody was inconvenienced or uncomfortable and I was around that person, I would first of all say, oh my God, it's my fault. I am actually a problem in this room and I need to actually work on it. I mean, the story I just gave you now about me being in the hospital, and I said a couple of years ago, I would have shifted and I would have shifted and I would have shifted and I would have shifted. I would just be adjusting myself primarily because I'm uncomfortable, but also heavily because of the fact that I do not want that woman to feel uncomfortable. I did not want her to feel like, oh, I'm making her tight or I'm making her uncomfortable. And so I'll shift and shift and shift instead of me holding my space and saying, this is my space. I'm not moving. You better adjust yourself or you get out of this seat. I would keep on adjusting until I actually fell off that seat and then had to be rushed to the emergency room. But I'm glad I don't do that now. But before, I used to do it a lot. I used to do that thing a lot. A lot. Man, people pleasing is actually really exhausting. Like, and most of the time, you wouldn't even know that you are being a people pleaser until it's really burnt you out. It's really, really burnt you out. But I did get over people pleasing, at least to an extent that I can actually talk about this now and see things significantly clearer than I would have seen them a couple of years back. And so I'm going to share with you how I got over people pleasing. The first thing that I did was to recognize that I wanted to actually stop being a people pleaser. I wanted to actually heal from being a people pleaser. And I think that when it comes to healing, not just only from people pleasing, but when it comes to healing from a lot of things, the first step is always acknowledging that this thing is actually something that you want to heal from. And when I say healing from it, in the past couple of episodes, I and my guests, we talked about how people pleasing is not just something like magic that can happen to anybody, although that happens. But most especially, some of the attributing factors of people pleasing, it comes from a person's childhood, it comes from a person's environmental conditioning, it comes from a couple of other factors. And so when you realize that, oh my God, I've really been shaped into somebody who can withstand conflict with people, who can't say his mind or her mind, who can't express him or herself very freely or expressively. The first step would then be to actually acknowledge the fact that you want to heal from this. You want to heal from the feeling of being a people pleaser or from the people pleasing tendencies that you do have. So, after you've realized that, okay, I have this tendency and I want to heal from this, coupled with that is going to come the realization of the burnout and the resentment that it caused. Personally, this was the case for me. I think these two steps even go hand in hand, whereby you realize that this thing is making me feel burnt out. This thing is making me feel resentful to the people that I'm supposed to be happy when it comes to helping them. You then want to heal from that. And so for me, it came to realizing how burnt out I felt when I did favors for people. And I ended up not feeling happy about those favors. I would feel resentment because I felt almost obligated to help these people. Let me tell you a story, okay? A very brief story about this is a story that made me eventually decide that I do not want to be a people pleaser at all. I do not want to, and I cannot continue like this. So it was in my year one, which most people could consider the fresher year or the freshman year. And we were supposed to have a test by 8 a.m. that day. So I went to school. It started to rain. It was raining heavily. I couldn't even get to class because the distance between where I was going to drop off from the university shuttle to my classroom was large and there was no covering. So if I were to walk that distance or even run towards that distance, I would get so drenched in the rain. And so I decided to wait it out somewhere in another department. I think I was in the department of physics. I was just there. That was the closest place. I was just staying there. And I was waiting for this rain to subside. It was, I think it was around 7:50 already. And so I was like, time is really going. I need to get to class. I need to ensure that I'm ready and well sat for this test because I've been reading for this test and I was like, I'm going to ace it. But the rain kept on falling, 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 the rain kept on falling. And then 8 o'clock reached, 8:10 reached, it was 8:20. And then I get a notification from a longtime friend of mine. We attended the same institution before. And this person texts me and is like, hey, I'm around your school. Do you want to meet up? Let's hang a bit before I go. In my mind, I'm like, wow, it's wonderful to meet this person. It's going to be wonderful to see them. A familiar face in this uni. I mean, being a freshman in this university, you kind of don't have friends, close friends there. You just know your classmates here and there. You don't know much people. So a familiar face would have is so it was so exciting to know that there was a familiar face around the environment. But then again, and I thought I have a test though, and by then the rain has started to subside. And so I could have just walked to the department to see what's going on, to see whether that test is still going to hold. You understand? Like this was a very important thing for me, a deciding factor for my grades. And so I could simply go into the class and then see whether the test is there, whether the lecturer had even come. And then before I go out and text my friend. But in my mind, I said, you know what, this is so exciting. I still have this thing to worry about. But I don't think the lecturer is going to come under this rain. I don't think that, I was just telling myself, you know what, it's not possible. This kind of rain, there's no way the lecturer is going to come. There's no way this class is even going to hold. And so I texted my friend, I was like, let's hang. Even though I felt somehow, in my heart, I felt a pang. I was like, this feels weird. This feels off. But you know what, let me go and have fun. I texted this friend and we kept on going. I texted this friend and this friend met me up and then we started going. We hanged out. We went far, a very far distance. It was like opposite ends of where my class is and where this friend and I walked to. We walked quite a long distance. We're gisting, we're talking, we're laughing, we're having fun. And then I was coming back. I was almost catwalking. I was almost jumping up with so much joy going back to the classroom. It was wonderful. I then came into the class and guess what had happened? The test had been holding consistently, and because of the rain, the lecturer was considerate enough to start allowing people getting badges by badges. And so instead of everybody writing the test at once, the first set of people who came before the rain had written, they came out. The next set of people who made it when the rain was falling heavily went inside, wrote the test, came out. Then remember when I told you that the rain had started to subside a bit and I should have gone to that place? Around that time, people who now came into the class when the rain had started to subside had gone inside and were writing, and then the last batch came in. And so when I left my friend and I was going up the staircase to the department to go and see what's up, and I was not even going with any single seriousness. I was walking very calmly, pressing my phone. As I was going up, that was when the last set the lecturer had in mind for the day to write the test was going into the classroom. And so when I came in, everybody was sat down inside, and so I was outside the hall. Do you know how pained I felt? I felt so pained. I felt so bad because it's like I knew that the normal thing would have been to check if this thing was still holding, to see the situation of things, and then make a decision. But because I was like, I didn't want it was nice. It was nice to see this friend, see a familiar face. But also, I didn't want to like just say, oh, I can't hang out with you and all of that. I don't know how that sounds to anybody, but to me, I didn't want to disappoint this particular friend. I was like, you know what, let's just hang. Let me go and have fun. Let's go and have fun. You're here. Let's just. But then I had something important to do. Then I did not know that this was people pleasing. All I know was the thought of missing that test that could have given a big boost to my grade. And so that story eventually, when I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it and thought about it, eventually started to make sense to me that that was actually people pleasing. Because I could have said, no, hold on, let me go and check this. Put myself first. No matter how selfish anybody thinks that is, put myself first, then decide before I go back to make a decision with my friends. Do you get? I only just put them and the hangout and the circumstance first before I put myself and my situation. And so that's one thing that's one story and one event that eventually made this butterfly effect that made me start to see myself as a people pleaser and see this entire act and tendency as something that I wanted to get rid of. Now, here are some of the activities that I did and some of the things that I had practiced to help me get over the tendencies of people pleasing. The first thing I did was to find value in myself. One thing that I come to realize that made me people please a lot was because I did not value myself. And I think this is the core theme of the podcast, valuing oneself. When you do not value yourself, when you think you have nothing to bring into the table, it's very easy to place every Tom, Dick, and Harry on a pedestal. You're like, this person is better than me. Oh my, this person. You're only just seeing the side of themselves that they want you to see, but you've automatically, subconsciously, even maybe consciously too, decided that this person is actually better than I am. Because you have zero to no value, not even zero to no, you have little to zero to no value in yourself. You think, I have no value, I have nothing to offer, so everybody is better than me. And I used to feel that way, as bad and as sad as it sounds. I used to feel that way. And so how I changed this entire perspective was reflecting. And by reflecting, what do I mean? I sat down and I told myself, okay, guy, what do you have to offer to people? What's something that you think you bring into a relationship? Think hard about this and don't tell yourself, oh, I have nothing. Don't belittle yourself. Don't underestimate yourself. Be very, very honest with yourself. If you think you're even being a fraud by thinking all these thoughts, yes, be it. But genuinely ask yourself, what do I bring into conversations that I think is really valuable? And so I sat down and I'll be honest with you. I thought about this couple of things. I was like, I'm somebody who, even though people have used my emotional availability and they used it in a way that was detrimental to me, I'm somebody who has a very, very good emotional presence. When I'm talking with somebody, they feel like somebody's actually listening to them. They feel heard. I have this emotional warmth. I have this emotional capacity to almost be a comforting person for somebody. I feel like, and I thought more, and I was like, I genuinely wish people well. I have very good knowledge when it comes to ICT and computer science. I started to list positive things about myself. And what that does is that subconsciously now, even though it's not very in your face, it's not in your mind, but subconsciously you're like, maybe I'm not really that bad after all. Maybe I do have something that I can bring to the table. Maybe I do have something that I can offer to people. Are you seeing what I'm saying? And so you're thinking now, I have something to offer to people. I have something to offer to people. And then consistently doing that now, it's then becoming at the forefront of your mind to the point that if somebody asks you on the whim, what do you even think you have to offer? You have almost 5 things in your head that you offer to a conversation. What that does for you now is making you slowly but surely, you start being selective of your circle. You're like, I have something to offer, so I'm not going to let anybody who doesn't even bring value or who doesn't even have value in themselves come into my own circle to mess up the value that I'm bringing for myself. I genuinely hope this makes sense because it made so much sense to me. So start now and ask yourself, what are some things that I think I bring to the table that is very valuable? It does not matter how small or little or trivial you think they are. List them out, write them down. Write them down. Ask yourself these questions. Start listing them. Do it consistently. Do it as consistently as you can, okay? Even if you don't do it every day, do it as consistent as you can. One thing I would always say is inconsistent consistency is the best consistency. So sit down, ask yourself, what value do I bring? Write it down to the smallest. It could even be, oh, I am very organized. I'm a very organized person. Anybody I come around, I can help organize whatever situation it is. You can say, oh, I give great advice. If somebody brings a problem to me, they leave feeling satisfied. You can say, oh, I'm very funny. Once somebody's around me, they always laugh. I always make people feel a bit lighter than they came to me. Do you get? slowly but surely you start to realize how valuable you are. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? The next thing I started to do was to start saying no. This is so hard. This is so hard. I'm not going to come here and say, well, saying no has been the best thing that ever changed my life. And it was so easy to do. Okay. All you have to do is say no. Say it with your whole heart. You wouldn't feel anything. Nah, that's a big lie. Saying no was so hard at first. And sometimes I hear people who say, when you say no to people, you don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to give any reason. It might be controversial, but I think that sometimes you do have to give reason. Maybe not the entire reason, or not so much reason in a way that it seems like you're not begging them to accept you saying no, but reason in a way that they cannot question you. Let me say, for instance, now, as I meet a friend of mine who is feeling tired and we are good friends. And I say, hey, please, could you help me lift this chair and move it from this place to this place? And the friend just turns and looks at me and says, no, and then goes back to rest their head. And I'm like, you're joking. And I ask them, and they really mean it, and they say, no, I'm not going to do that. And then, that's rude. In my opinion, to another person, this might not sound rude, but to me, that's actually kind of rude. I will feel hurt as a friend. Now, as for a stranger, you see a stranger who needs your help, or I see a stranger and I need that stranger's help for something, and maybe it's money even. And I say, please, could you help me with this? I really need you to go for an event. I need money for a transport. Now let's use transport. And I say, please, could you help me with 100 naira? I need you to take transportation. And the person just goes, no. Or the person just says, no. In my mind, I don't know, in a way, it feels like the person is actually being rude to me. And so one thing I would advise that you could try is to say no as often as you can, but also try to add some sort of reason behind that saying no to validate your saying no to yourself, if that makes sense. Example, like that my friend example, let's say that my friend's example, or it could be a friend, it could even be a stranger. Hey, please, could you help me lift this up? Instead of saying no, you can say, oh, I'm sorry, I cannot be able to do that. Oh, I actually am tired. Do you understand? Or you could say, oh, no, I would actually not like to do that. Not because of any hate towards you or anything. Is this too bad? Is this too much? For some people, they would feel like that's too much explanation. But for me, I would just say, no, I can't do this because of this. Full stop. You don't have to go further. You don't have to start making the person see reason. You just state your no and then a bit of a reason why you can't. If it comes to a conversation about money or a situation that involves money, you can say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't really give you this money, or I don't really have money to give out right now. You might have money, but listen to the statement, I don't have money to give out. In my head, it just makes better sense to say, especially as you're starting out with the saying of no, to say no, and then a brief reason why you can't. Oh no, I'm tired. Oh no, I don't feel up to it. Oh no, I don't have money to give out right now. Oh no, I don't have money to buy this particular thing right now. Oh, I'm not feeling up to this right now. You do get, instead of just saying no, because that can come off as rude, and you might then increase your own anxiety or the feeling of guilt or the feeling of uncomfortable tension if you're trying to get out of people pleasing, which might make you then overcompensate by pouring out everything. You might then overcompensate by apologizing so much and trying to over explain why it is you said no. So a simple no, I might not be up to this. Oh no, I don't feel like doing this would simply suffice. So try it. So you could give it a try. I genuinely believe that this helps because that's what I do right now. Another thing I did to help change my people pleasing tendencies was to change my thought process around certain habits and certain things. Now, as a people pleaser, there is this feeling of wanting to say yes to people's requests immediately, similar to this last one I just said on saying no. But there's always this feeling of not wanting to disappoint somebody. And so when somebody puts you on the spot and asks you a question about something, you would then go, yes, instead of just saying, oh no, I would not be able to do. You want to say yes, you want to say. So one thing I started to do was to change my thought process around that. I started to ask myself, do I have to necessarily do this? Do I want to do this activity because of the fact that I like it, or because I do not want this person to feel disappointed in me? When you take that pause and you really think of why you are doing a particular action, clarity would come immediately, because you will then understand whether you are doing that activity because you want to, you are doing that activity because you feel obligated to, or you're doing that activity because you don't want that person to feel disappointed in you. And knowing where you stand would help you very well in your journey of self-development. Because when it comes to requests that people would ask you to do for them, or favors or anything, just a brief pause and asking yourself, do I have to do this? how do I feel about this particular thing at my core? Is this something I have genuinely have the energy to commit to? Those simple questions and pause you ask yourself would bring out so much clarity. And then if it's something you feel like you can actually do, go for it. But if it's something your body, your mind, deep down in your soul, you know that you can't really do that, you can then tell that person no with the example I just gave above. Another thing I did was to express a different opinion without apologizing. One of the things I said as a tendency for people pleasing is trying to shrink your opinions, your beliefs, and how you feel about particular things so that a person would not lose favor with you or so that you would not lose favor with a particular person. One thing that I did was to slowly start expressing how I felt about things. It doesn't have to be something really big or something you're uncomfortable about, but just slow things. Let me say, somebody says, I think black is the most wonderful color in the entire world. What do you think about this? You don't think black is the most wonderful color in the entire world. You don't have to say, yeah, I think so. You can say, black is nice, but I generally prefer brown. I think brown is much more better because that might cause a little bit of tension, but you've expressed yourself. And one thing I have slowly started to come to realize is that people respect people who are autonomous in their thinking. I don't think this is a meeting. I don't think this is something that I've only observed. I've come to realize that people particularly like being around people who are very decisive, people who are autonomous. Like if you can make decisions for yourself, you know what you like, know what you don't like, you would even pull a good number of people towards you. People would naturally gravitate and respect you than somebody who just goes with the flow and has no backbone, somebody who's just spineless. If you say, oh, this the sky is blue, they agree with you. If you say tomorrow is green, they would agree with you. And so in the journey of dropping people pleasing tendencies, what I did was to slowly start expressing how I genuinely felt about particular things. And I think if you apply this for your own journey, it would actually yield good results. Now, there are two more things I did that helped me reduce the people pleasing tendencies that I had. The first one was hanging around people who genuinely made me feel good about myself. Like I was associating myself with people who made me feel good. And when it comes to associating yourself with people who make you feel good, it helps a lot with reducing your people pleasing tendencies. But that has to be done with intentionality. Why do I say so? Associating yourself with people who make you feel good would first of all lower your anxiety when it comes to being a people pleaser or reducing the tendency of being a people pleaser, because when you're around those kind of people, you're not monitoring yourself, you're not trying to control how you behave around them, you're just yourself. And when you express your boundaries or you say you do not like particular things or you say you do not want to do particular things, those people already make you feel good about yourself. They appreciate you for who you are. They would not feel offended. There's no withdrawal of love or affection simply because you were honest with them. Do you get? And so your mind now over time will start to feel like, hold on, I can actually be myself and I will still be fine when it comes to associating with people. You understand that? But then again, there is a catch when it comes to this, because while associating yourself with people who make you feel good can help with your people pleasing, if you only associate with people who make you feel good simply because you want to avoid discomfort, then it will just quietly reinforce people pleasing. Because a trait, remember, of people pleasing is what? Avoiding conflict, avoiding setting boundaries and enforcing others. So if you're only agreeing or surrounding yourself, if you're only surrounding yourself with yes men and people who are just making you feel good and there's no healthy tension or conflict or boundaries around there, you're just a people pleaser who just was able to find a place whereby there's little to no discomfort, which doesn't help because there will not be any good, honest conversations that would happen. So all of that to be avoided just so that everybody still feels good. Okay. Anytime that somebody feels unhappy with you, you will just leave and call them toxic instead of really understanding that situation very well. Do you understand? So the thing is that hanging around with good people does not mean that there is going to be zero conflict. It simply just means that amidst that conflict, there is the working out of that conflict, whilst there is still respect and there is still this feeling of feeling safe while each parties express how they feel and they work towards resolving it. Do you get? So there is that. And then the last thing that I did that helped me in removing this very disgusting plague they call people pleasing was letting people be disappointed and not fix it. In this life, I came to realize that you can't just please everybody. I think that's a generic thing. It should be like somebody's wallpaper. Somebody that might be listening to this podcast, your wallpaper might be, you cannot please everybody. There are some people you have to disappoint. and realize that life just goes on. But as much as that sounds very generic, I genuinely do believe in it. I believe that there are people who would never be satisfied with you, no matter how good of a person you are to them. I saw a quote one time that said that no matter how tasty of, I don't remember the quote for verbatim. I think it goes along this line of, no matter how tasty you are as an apple, somebody would never like you simply because of the fact that their favorite fruit is a banana. And that thing really hits me well, because no matter how yourself you are and how good of yourself you are, there are some people who would never fundamentally appreciate or like yourself, you as a person. And coming to terms with that and coming to comfortability with that would bring you so much peace. And so what I do now is help in as much capacity as I can. And so if I know I can commit to this, I commit to this with my full strength for you. If I know I'm going to be there for you, I'm going to support you with my full strength. If I know I can be able to do this, and all of this does not happen to the detriment of my own goals, ambitions, activities, plans, health, both mentally and physically, I will do that. Okay, I will do all of this for you. But once it starts infringing on that, I would let you know exactly where my limit is. And if you feel disappointed because of that, I would actually try to explain. And if I realize that you are fundamentally and consistently disappointed because of that, I would let you go. Because I cannot spread myself thin and consistently bend over backwards for somebody who would see that my best is not enough for them. Do you get? It makes so much sense to me, and it really has helped me a lot. I genuinely think it has helped me a lot. And I think that if you can apply this to yourself, you would actually see a lot of those people pleasing tendencies drop. The last thing I want to say is, don't beat yourself up. As much as I'm coming here to say I've really reduced the people pleasing tendencies I used to have, I still have my days whereby I'm off, whereby I do something and then I go back home and I'm like, shit. I didn't want to do that. I crossed a boundary, or I let this person cross my boundary, or I did not have the energy to do this. I just people please now. I'm doing this, or I sit down and I tell myself, why am I doing this? And I realize I'm doing this for this person's approval. Like there are days whereby you're going to be like, I thought I was going far on this journey. How come I just slipped off? Or maybe you're starting out and it's just so hard. It's going to be like that, but it only gets hard until it doesn't get hard, right? It's going to be hard, easy, hard, easy. So it's just going to be occasional hard, but majorly easy as time goes on, and as long as you consistently practice that. These are things that helped me, and I genuinely hope they help you too. And that's all I've got for today's episode. Thank you so much for chilling with me. Thank you for having this wonderful conversation with me. It's always a pleasure, like I've always and will continue to say, to have a conversation with you. I really apologize for not dropping an episode this past couple of weeks. Remember the last episode I dropped about having typhoid? Yeah, guess who had the heaviest typhoid he's had in a long while? Me! I had typhoid again, and it came with so much full force, and it affected my voice. I sounded very off, and I didn't want to come on the podcast and say, hey, welcome to the episode, and today I'm gonna be talking about. No, I didn't want to do that. So I'm recovering now, and I'm better off. I'm so better off than I was a couple of weeks ago. And so the episode schedules are going to go back to how they were. Although I was thinking about dropping episodes weekly, but that would have to be something that I would think about very well, plan, and then ensure that I'm not just dropping anything weekly, but I'm dropping something valuable for you to listen to. Once again, thank you so much for listening. It's really wonderful to have this conversation with you. Check out the Almost 20 podcast on Instagram at Almost 20 podcast. Check out me, your host, on Instagram at _Guy Martins. Check out me on TikTok at _Guy Martins. Don't forget to rate the podcast. Don't forget to share the podcast with whoever you thought needed this episode. Rating the podcast helps a lot because it shows other people that they are listeners of this podcast, and it's a visible mark that the podcast does indeed give value to its listeners. Follow the podcast if you haven't, and if you're listening on Spotify, you can just hit the notification bell beside the follow button so that you get notified anytime a new episode drops. Keep being the best version of yourself, and I genuinely hope you apply these tips to yourself. Now, if you feel like this is people pleasing and you do not want to apply it at all, don't do it, okay? Apply these tips if you want to. If you feel like you're under obligation to do this, don't do it at all. Let this not be toxic. You can forget everything I've just said now if you think it will be people pleasing if you follow. If you think it's going to be people pleasing, you can as well forget about it. But I genuinely believe that there would be value in application of, if not all, but at least any of the tips that I've given here. It's been wonderful to have a conversation with you, and I'll talk to you in the next episode. Bye.